I am Dr. Susie Gronseth. I'm on the faculty of the Learning, Design, and Technology program area in the College of Education at the University of Houston in Texas. In this presentation, I will be focused on how to use technology with children ages 0 to 5. So we'll be looking at the benefits that technology offers for kids of this age. You may have heard that you need to avoid all screens for children ages 2 and under and use technologies with a maximum of 2 hours per day of high quality material for older children, ages 2 and above. This was because the American Academy of Pediatrics, AAP, recommended about 5 years ago in 2011 that we turn it off for ages 0 to 2 and a max of 2 hours for 2 and above. The AAP recognizes, though, the innovations that have happened in the area of children's digital media in the past few years. And this is an exciting area of development because they are in the process of updating the digital media use guidelines. There was a digital media symposium last May 2015, and they have since released some preliminary recommendations which I have structured this presentation around. The fully revised guidelines from the AAP are expected around October of this year, 2016. So what I'm showing you here is a table from a study called 0 to 8 Children's Media Use in America, commissioned by the Common Sense Media in 2013. And it is important to note that 30% of U.S. children first play with a mobile device when they are still in diapers. Common Sense Media is the organization that produces information resources and reviews and recommendations for apps and movies and games for children. They are a great treasure of information on this topic, and I will be referencing some of their materials and resources in this presentation that you can then access and look on your own to answer some questions that you may have that come up about screen time in early childhood. But first, let's look at a few things that I found interesting from their survey of digital media use by children ages 0 to 8 years old. First, the overall screen time per day for ages 0 to 1 was about an hour, as we can see in the first column, 58 minutes here at total screen time. It was about 2 hours for ages 2 to 4, and about 2 hours and a half, or 2 hours and 21 minutes exactly, was the average for ages 5 to 8. But as we'll see in a little bit in this presentation, the length of screen time is actually not as important as the content and the context of use during the time that the screen time and digital media are being used. Another thing that I find interesting on this table is that television watching dominates the digital media consumed. So you can see in the first row, TV watching has the highest amount of screen time of all the other kinds of media that might have been consumed in the survey. While TV is often more of a passive activity than many interactive apps on mobile devices, the type of program and whether or not us as parents, I have 2 boys that are at the time of this recording 1.5 and 7.5. It's important whether or not we are engaged with our children while watching. That actually matters as much, if not more, than the length of time that they're spent watching it. Given that the mobile device use was recorded at 1 minute for ages 0 to 1, so I'm looking at the playing games on mobile devices. That's the fourth row, so 1 minute here for ages 0 to 1. And we have 7 minutes for ages 2 to 4 and 12 minutes. This is per day for ages 5 to 8. I suspect, though, that these figures are steadily increasing because this is a survey published a few years ago. And that is because I think it's increasing because there has been a constant development of new educationally oriented, kid-friendly apps. So I would suspect that these numbers are higher and will continue to increase. So we are going to explore beyond the, quote, turn it off mentality to the kinds of recommendations that the AAP is moving toward, the recommendations that they released last fall. One of those is the recognition that media is just another environment, that screen time is becoming simply time. Children are doing the same things children have done in the past, just now some of these things are virtual. The AAP recognizes that there are positive and negative effects. Digital games can offer some of the same play opportunities as non-digital activities. Things like using your imagination, identifying goals, and creating a sense of control, mastery, and community. Digital media and particularly interactive apps help children to formulate realistic expectations about failure as not the end of something, but as a learning opportunity. And they help them gain the benefits of patience, perseverance, and self-control. Another thing that the AAP recognized in this symposium is that parenting has not changed. We as parents have the rules that we have established for general routines and behavior in our homes, and these rules apply to our children's real and now virtual environments. Our children need to know the boundaries, so we need to decide on some limits, set them, communicate them to our children, and enforce them. None of these things are very easy, but it is necessary. It may take some trial and error to find the right limits for your family. So to say 2 hours per day max is the limit for everyone is not necessarily correct. It may be different from one family to the next. What is important is that we strive to learn about the websites, games, the online friends, and other technology-based activities that our children are interested in. And for me, for example, this means learning Minecraft along with my 7.5-year-old son and watching the YouTube videos that my boys are interested in. I hope that you will walk away from this presentation remembering that parental involvement is paramount. The AAP advises us parents to limit our own media use and to model online etiquette. To be attentive to our children, we've got to put our own screens away intentionally to direct our focus on our children. And this is a picture of me and my 2 boys where we went on a hike. And I did take the picture as a selfie with my cell phone, and my son had his iPod and he was taking pictures also. But as we were hiking, I was intentionally trying not to check email and social media and things and just using it more to take pictures and send to family to tell them what we were up to. But it is a huge struggle for me and my husband to be the role models on technology use because we work full-time and I work as a college professor, And I also have to take care of our 2 children, particularly now as my husband is working overseas. So a lot of that responsibility falls on my shoulders currently. And my workload at the university is great, and my time is only so much every day, so I have to try to fit in all the tasks that I need to complete. Sometimes I try to do that in the in-between times, like check and answer emails or discussion posts for my courses or read professional articles quickly in a brief down moment that I might have. And I have to eventually, at the end of the day, finish things at night. So once the boys get to bed, I work a few hours and try to get everything done. So in those brief in-between moments during the day when I answer an email or check a discussion post, I think maybe if I take care of this now, I won't have to stay up so late and I can get more sleep because I'll already have the task done by the time that the evening rolls around. But my boys also need me to be present when they are awake, so it is a challenge to find the right balance, but I have to keep trying, and so do you. So what I'm doing is when my son is talking to me, I intentionally try to put my device away, turn and face directly to him. So not try to listen to him while I'm looking at a screen. During sit-down meals, I try to put the phone on silent and away from the table because that's often what I'm asking my children to do. We can turn as many of the notifications off or change the settings, particularly in our phones, to not have audio alerts for notifications, such as we don't necessarily need to know every time we get an email. And our children don't need to hear the dings all the time on the phones. So we can model that so that we're not disrupting the day with these notifications. It's all in all about teaching our children by telling them and showing them when the appropriate and inappropriate times are to be in the virtual environment. And when are the times to be in the natural environment, as you can see in this picture. The AAP recommends what they call co-viewing, which is watching or interacting with the digital media alongside your child, particularly for infants and toddlers. Watching and interacting with the media together, we can ask things like, what happens if I touch this or move that on the screen? Or what shall we make happen next? What can we try here? Or you can ask your child to show you how to do something. You could ask, what shapes or colors do you see? Or you can say something like, that's a fast race car. What do you think it sounds like? That's elaborating on what you're watching or playing with on the screen. You can extend the activity by saying, I wonder what would happen if. Why do you think that happened? What have we tried? And trying to problem solve in order to solve a game. Or what is your favorite part? So it's promoting that conversation while you're viewing something. The AAP recommends that devices be something that are used together and not done alone. And that's not just the AAP. A lot of the sources that I researched in preparing this presentation advocated for co-viewing and co-engagement with digital media at the early years. We can teach sharing and cooperation while taking turns in a screen-based game, and we can talk about the game while playing. Games can teach persistence and encourage the child through failure and finding ways to approach the challenge and problem in the app differently. And the way that we respond to failure as we complete the activity alongside them can serve as a model for them. We learn from each other. Young children learn best through two-way communication, according to neuroscience research. In the AAP's Growing Up Digital Media Research Symposium, that was last May that I mentioned earlier, a panel presented some neuroscience research on infant language development. And this is quoting from the symposium proceedings, demonstrating that infants under 12 months of age learn from live presentations, but less effectively from video. So that would be under a year old. During ages 1 to 2, children can learn some language from video, but live presentation continues to be much more effective. The panel spoke of the importance of what they called contingent interaction, that is the two-way social interchange that happens between the parent and the child to promote learning in very young children. The more screen media mimics live interactions, the panel said, like video chat, such as FaceTime, the more educationally valuable it is likely to be. They spoke of a study in which toddlers, ages 2 to 2.5 years old, who were able to learn novel words via video chat conversation. By comparison, passive video presentation like TV shows did not lead to language learning in these children. The panelists agreed that parent and child co-viewing and co-participation with media facilitates any educational experience gained from media activities in the youngest children. So talking with your child contributes to language development. Better media education-wise are going to be those that are more like the live interactions that they would have with real people. And the educational value really begins more starting around age 2. You and I can make the technology use more language-rich and interactive by viewing and participating together. As you can see, that is a theme in this presentation, that co-viewing, co-engagement. We can ask questions such as those that I suggested in the previous slide, these questions that extend and problem solve and enrich that media that we're interacting with or viewing. We can help our children connect to what we are seeing in the app or the show to what is real in the real world. We can reinforce the educational concepts that are introduced with real objects and actions, and we can extend the learning by making up our own play or doing similar activities that we saw in the app or the show, using the same story or doing something different using the same skills, such as where we might be sorting objects on an app, we can sort clothes at home. Content matters. The content quality is more important than the platform or even the time spent. Content should reflect the child's experience in the real world. It should portray positive interactions between people and model appropriate behavior. So if we're co-viewing alongside our child, we need to look for how the characters are interacting and if they serve to be good role models for our children. So rather than setting a timer, we need to prioritize how our children are spending their time with the media, and if the media that they're watching is appropriate and high quality. That will give us the most educational value. Playtime is important, and we need to remember that children need multisensory play. Screens are limited currently with technology. Technology has progressed quite a bit over the last decade, but it's still quite limited in providing the play and movement in a very multi-sensory way that you can get from being outside. And this picture is showing my youngest son and I at a horse ranch, and we are having that multi-sensory experience being around the horses, touching, feeling, tasting, smelling, and hearing the world around us and exploring. So we need to allow time for children to continue to have that free play and exploration, and not think that the digital media can replace that. Digital media can certainly be a part of the child's day, but it is important to continue to intentionally build in those whole body experiences beyond the screen. And these experiences will help the children to better develop the language and foundational understandings about their physical world. We have to be careful that the technologies don't displace or crowd out time for less structured opportunities, for what the AAP calls developmental stimulation through free play. And they cite a multidisciplinary body of work that supports the notion that boredom stimulates creativity. So children do not need structured activities all the time. They need those gaps that nothing is planned, and they can engage in free play and come up with creative ways to use their time, and that promotes creativity. The boredom motivates them to be creative. So I think we should seek a balance of using electronics and providing opportunities for children to play with traditional toys, read books, and engage in typical childhood activities like throwing a ball around and building and knocking down towers and creating art. If you find that the time spent on the iPad or other technologies are starting to crowd out the time and your children's motivation to do other activities, then setting time limits on the electronics would be advised. So I want to share with you a very recent study just published about which type of toy or book can promote the best language development in very young children. So the name of the study was Association of the Type of Toy Used During Play with the Quantity and Quality of Parent-Infant Communication by SOSA, published this year, 2016. So basically in this study, there were 3 different toy sets: books, traditional toys, and electronic toys, toys that talk and make sound and lights and those kind of things. Traditional toys being blocks, non-electronic. In the study, there were 15-minute parent-infant play sessions. There were 26 pairs of parent-infants, and then the researchers observed the interactions during those play sessions. The results of this study showed that during play with the electronic toys, there were noticeably and a significant difference of fewer adult words, fewer conversational turns between the parent and the infant, fewer parental responses, and fewer productions of content-specific words during the play than with both the traditional toys and the books. The children also vocalized less when playing with the electronic toys. Maybe we make the assumption that the electronic toy is doing enough interaction so we can step back and not have to, maybe with an inanimate doll, for instance, we provide the imaginary voice, whereas the talking doll speaks for itself. The results were found to be best during play sessions with books. So when the parent and child interacted during the 15-minute play session, there were most child vocalizations and most adult words and most conversational turns, all of those things when books were used. The second place was when traditional toys were used, and then the fewest of those conversational turns and vocalizations from the children were with the electronic toys. The AAP recommends that you may need to set limits, and we talked about when the devices tend to be overused to the point that some of those free play and opportunities to do other activities are being crowded out. What limits can you set for using digital media with children 0 to 5? And a lot of these things could apply to older children as well as they grow beyond age 5. Consider the quality of the content and the context in which the screen is used. Use the age-appropriate educational tool alongside your child and interact with it and talk about what you are seeing and doing. This is greatly preferred over the child just passively viewing the program on his or her own. So if you're interacting and engaging with an educationally appropriate app, that time spent is much more valuable than the child sitting and viewing it passively. We need to limit the passive independent viewing of the media. You can consider the child's total number of awake hours in a day and think about the percentage of that you would want him or her to be in front of a screen. So if your child is awake for 10 hours, would you feel comfortable with him or her spending 10% of that time, which would be about an hour, away from other activities, such as the free play, but also meals, and maybe story time, preschool, daily care, bathing. So think about the percentage of their day that you would feel comfortable designating to digital media. As our children get older, we need to watch out for digital media overuse and signs of addiction to the technologies, where the digital media is used to displace rather than extend real relationships and real-world activities. Some warning signs that you can tuck away for the future include withdrawal symptoms that disappear when your child is allowed back online. So you take away the device and they show signs that they're not as happy, they are listless, they just can't get over not having the device. And then when you give it back to them, those symptoms go away. Excessive use, and that is nebulous, but it's determined if it's crowding out other activities and they don't want to do other activities because the device is taking precedent. Or a willingness to risk negative consequences, such as withdrawing from your family or social community to just use the device. So be aware that as your child gets older, digital media overuse and addiction is a real thing, and we need to help them set limits that are healthy. The AAP recommends to create tech-free zones. So you can establish no technology times and places in your home, such as at the dinner table and in the bedroom, and about an hour or two before bedtime. This is a picture of my two boys reading before bedtime rather than using devices. Setting these boundaries promotes family time, healthier eating, and more restful sleep. Did you know that the light from screen media has been found to disrupt melatonin secretion? Melatonin is the body's hormone that synchronizes our circadian rhythms, which are our day-night cycles. So using screens before bedtime and keeping them in the bedroom overnight may delay sleep onset, which we don't want to do with our kids, but that can also be true for us. So looking at the screens right before we go to sleep can mess with our own circadian rhythms. Affecting the melatonin secretion not only can affect how quickly our children can go to sleep, but also can shorten the sleep duration and interfere with them achieving deep, restful sleep. And a lot of behavior and functioning success depends on sleep, and even physical systems depend on restful sleep. So it's very important that our children get the sleep that their body needs. Curation helps. Curation of the digital media resources. There are so many apps, online websites, and interactive electronic toys that claim to be educational. But are they really? Do they provide that quality content and promote those interactions that we are looking for in our children? In preparing for this session, this presentation, I read a number of resources, including the book titled Using an iPad with Your Preschooler by two Gails. And I'm familiar with Gail Lovely's work through my involvement with the International Society for Technology in Education. She is quite well known for her knowledge and advocacy for technology use in early childhood education, as she has over 35 years of experience in education. So I highly regard both Gails for what they recommend relating to apps and other technologies for early childhood. So I'm going to share a little bit from this book. They say, and I quote, "We do not think that technology should replace books and blocks and walks in the park, but we see opportunities to use an iPad and other technologies to capture your child's adventures, ideas, and imagination." They speak of how technologies can be used to engage children in meaningful relationships, conversations, and warm family moments on the positive side, and offer ideas to how we can do this and otherwise minimize using the tools negatively, such as a pacifier to get the child to stop crying, as a babysitter to use independently while we do something else away from them, or to keep them quiet. Because they and other authorities like the AAP do not support the use of an iPad or any other type of technology as a passive device, these authors speak about connecting the developmental level of a child with that of an app or other tool. So they have set these 5 developmental levels in relationship to the use of a technology. These levels involve the hand-eye coordination in preschoolers. So slappers, pointers and tappers, draggers, drawers and writers, and typers. And I'm going to talk about each of these stages and show you some example apps that I have used with my children in these various stages. The stages go from left to right, and they're not associated with a particular age or a particular length of time that the child might be in that stage, but they do progress from left to right. So starting off, the slappers, they will slap and swipe with intention, but they don't have a lot of control. An example app that my boys have enjoyed when they've been at the slapper stage is called Tiny Piano. It's a free app, and it plays a lot of songs just by touching anywhere on the keyboard, not necessarily the exact keys for the song. So it's a great way to introduce to our little ones the idea that touching the screen has some result. The next stage is the pointing stage, and as the child points to the objects with greater intentionality, the realm of app possibilities broadens because he or she can begin to point and interact with an app through the touchscreen. At first, the area he or she points at would need to be rather large to enable a greater range of air, but as our children gain precision, the target area on the screen can become smaller. And our children will learn through these interactions when they point on a screen and see what happens. Music or some other sound plays, the screen changes, or they receive praise from us. Now here's an example of an app that is great for pointers and tappers, and one that my oldest child, enjoyed for quite some time. It's called Curious George at the Zoo. And in this app, you take care of the animals at the zoo by, as you can see in this screenshot, bathing the hippo by putting water on it. And so you tap the screen to add water and add soap and rinse off and scrub. And you can take care of other animals too in the zoo. For the dragging stage, the child can point and then drag it continuously while still touching the screen. Dragging your finger across the screen is like dragging fingers through the mud or spilled milk on the high chair or finger paints. The Gales recommend encouraging our children to learn the dragging motion by showing them, talking about it, and then praising them when they do it. So a very behaviorist approach of showing, doing, and reinforcing it. Apps that provide immediate feedback can help with this. Once children learn the dragging motion, they can use it to digitally sort objects, like this app that I'm showing here, Awesome Eats from Whole Foods. They can move shapes into outlined areas, like a traditional shape sorter, but doing it digitally, or assemble shapes to create pictures. In the Awesome Eats app, the children sort the food on conveyor belts into various baskets, and they receive healthy eating pointers along the way. At the drawing and writing stage, children are able to point and drag in more precise movements in specific places, and even can begin to do some pretend writing. This is a more advanced stage than just dragging, as children have the precision to start and stop letters or other writing type elements. An app we've enjoyed is called Kids Doodle, and children can draw or write letters in this app using a variety of what looks like different creative media, like pencil, crayon, paintbrush, and it has a collaborative share feature, which we have used to share drawings back and forth between us and the children's grandparents. The final stage is the typing stage, where children have precise enough movements to be able to use the keys on a keyboard or on an on-screen keyboard. They may still be pre-reading, but they can learn to type their own name and familiar things around them. A program that was provided through my oldest son's school is called iExcel. iExcel can be accessed through the web or via their app, which we put on the iPad. And we found the app to be much more convenient for our son. The iExcel content starts in preschool and provides multiple and varied practice in key math and language arts concepts. The Common Sense Media organization offer reviews of apps, games, and programs, as well as good information on digital citizenship, which is our behaviors using digital media online and offline, and issues such as online cyberbullying for the older kids. I'd like to show you the Common Sense Media website and how you can get to some of the areas that I find particularly helpful. So from the home page, you may want to explore different types of media based on age, and you can use the slider to adjust the kinds of content by age just on the home page. They will have some reviews of recently released apps and movies and shows that you can click on and read through. They have lists of top picks for different types of media, and that might be a great place to start exploring some apps that you would want to download for your child. They have them organized in list and related to different themes. For instance, apps that might promote healthy living. If I click on that one, I can select different age ranges, beginning with age 2. So if I click on the preschool, it will limit the results to those recommended for ages 2 to 4. I'll click on the first one, and so we can see an entry of the review. If you create an account on the website, you can save and favorite the particular app so that you can come back and remember what it was that that app that you had seen reviewed and want to download. So just briefly, the age appropriateness, the number of stars, and the rating for the educational value is provided right at the top. It is rated on ease of play, areas like violence, how sexual it is, any language, poor language that would be used, any consumerism, drinking, drugs, or smoking, the content areas. And so you can be aware of that without having to thoroughly play the app. It'll talk about what kinds of subject areas and skills that the app is good for, and other alternatives that are similar. So this is a great place to get ideas for apps. Under parent concerns, for those that are looking at technology for the preschool age, there is an early childhood section to the website. and there are some great FAQs that you can get answers to a question that you might have. There are some videos and articles relating to screen use with children in early childhood. There are a variety of app guides based on the age range, but also the type of device. So Kindle Fire, you can choose age 2 to 6, and then you can see, similar to the app list by subject, you can see by a particular type of technology. So the Common Sense Media website has lots of resources that it is well worth your time to explore. So in this presentation, we can sum up all that we've looked at in this one quote that comes from Screen Sense, Setting the Record Straight, Research-Based Guidelines for Screen Use for Children Under 3 Years Old, from the 0 to 3 National Center for Infants, Toddlers, and Families, that comes out of Georgetown University. They say that research shows that when parents and other trusted adults make screen use an interactive, shared experience, it can become a tool for learning, and the potential negative effects can be reduced. So if you will remember anything from this presentation, remember this, that digital media is a tool, and that it is most effective when we view it and interact with it alongside our young children. If you would like to learn more, here are some resources that I found very helpful. So feel free to access these and explore the ideas further.